There is a tiredness that has nothing to do with a lack of sleep. It's a quiet, heavy exhaustion that settles in your bones after a conversation, after an act of giving, after you've once again smoothed over a conflict that wasn't yours. It arrives in the silence after you hang up the phone or close the door behind a guest. The polite smile you were wearing dissolves, and you feel the true weight of the performance. You gave your energy, your patience, your understanding. You poured from your cup until it was empty. And as you stand there, in the quiet of your own space, you realize they didn't just take what you offered. They took a piece of the cup itself. You might call it empathy. You might call it kindness. Society has praised you for it. You are the good one, the dependable one, the one who always understands. But lately, these compliments have started to feel like the bars of a very beautiful, very comfortable cage. Because deep down, a painful question has begun to form. A question you barely dare to whisper to yourself. Why does my kindness so often lead to my own quiet suffering? Why does the act of being good feel so much like self-betrayal? You watch others. You see people who set boundaries with ease. They say no without a 5-paragraph explanation. They state a need without apologizing for it. And you watch them, not with judgment, but with a strange, secret envy. For you, the word no feels like a declaration of war. It feels like a failure. It feels mean. And the thought of being seen as mean, as selfish, as not nice, is so terrifying that you would rather drain yourself completely than face that feeling. You would rather betray your own need for rest, for peace, for reciprocity, than risk being cast in the role of the bad guy. This is the silent contract you have signed with the world. I will be endlessly good, endlessly kind, endlessly understanding. In return, you will not abandon me. You will not be angry with me. You will see my goodness, and you will value me for it. But the contract is constantly being breached, and always by the other party. Your goodness is not always met with value. It is often met with expectation. Your kindness is not cherished. It is consumed. And you are left, again and again, with the hollow ache of self-abandonment, wondering what is so fundamentally broken in you that your best quality has become your greatest vulnerability. This is not a failure of your character. It is not a sign that you are too sensitive or that your kindness is a flaw. It is the inevitable outcome of a deep psychological pattern, a dynamic that the pioneering psychologist Carl Jung spent his life exploring. It's the story of a persona that has become a prison and a shadow that is begging to be heard. The pain you are feeling is not a punishment. It is a summons. It is your own psyche calling you back from the brink of disappearing into the needs and expectations of others. It is a call to understand why your boundaryless kindness was never really about them in the first place. It was always about your deep, unconscious fear of being perceived as bad. Let's be clear. The exhaustion you feel is not the real problem. It is a symptom. It is the body's final, desperate alarm bell, ringing to tell you that your psychological energy is hemorrhaging. The true problem lies in the structure you have built your identity upon. Most people who identify as empaths or highly sensitive people believe their kindness is an innate, pure force that flows out of them naturally. They see it as the core of their being. But what if, for some, this constant, uninhibited kindness is not a pure expression of self, but a highly sophisticated defense mechanism? What if it is a performance? Not a dishonest performance, but a deeply ingrained, unconscious one, learned so early in life that it now feels like the only authentic way to be. This is where Carl Jung's concept of the persona becomes crucial. The persona is the mask we present to the world. It's the socially acceptable version of ourselves that we construct to navigate our careers, our friendships, and our place in society. We all have one. There is the persona of the competent professional, the rebellious artist, the devoted parent. These masks are not inherently bad. They are necessary tools for social interaction. The problem arises when we forget that we are wearing a mask. The problem begins when the ego, our center of consciousness, identifies completely with the persona. For the person who consistently betrays themselves through overgiving, the mask is that of the good person, the helper, the peacekeeper. This good person, persona, is built from a collection of beliefs. I must be helpful to be loved. I must be agreeable to be safe. Other people's comfort is my responsibility. My needs are a burden to others. These beliefs are rarely conscious. They operate like the operating system of a computer, running silently in the background, dictating every single action and reaction. When someone comes to you with a problem, the good person program immediately activates. It's not a conscious choice to help, it's a compulsion. The program dictates that your role is to soothe, to fix, to give. To do otherwise would be to violate the very code of your identity. To say, "I don't have the capacity for this right now," feels as impossible as trying to fly by flapping your arms. It's a system error. It feels like a fundamental failure of your being. And this is why it feels like self-betrayal. Because another part of you, a quieter, deeper part, knows you are tired. It knows you have nothing left to give. It knows that this person has a history of taking without ever giving back. This deeper part of you, the true self, is being overridden by the powerful programming of the persona. Each time you say yes when your body is screaming no, you are betraying that inner truth. You are abandoning yourself in favor of upholding the mask. Think of it like this. Your kindness is a beautiful, precious resource, like a spring of fresh water. A healthy person builds a well around their spring. They can draw water for themselves when they are thirsty. They can choose to offer a cup to a traveler in need. They are in conscious relationship with their resource. But the person trapped in the good person persona has not built a well. They have allowed their spring to become a public fountain in the middle of a desert, with no off switch. Anyone and everyone can come and drink their fill, at any time, day or night. The person themselves is often thirsty, standing by their own fountain, but feeling they don't have the right to drink first. They believe their purpose is to be the fountain, not to be nourished by it. The self-betrayal is the act of dying of thirst, while your own life-giving water is being used to quench everyone else. The exhaustion is the feeling of the spring running dry. The deeper, more uncomfortable truth is that this persona was not built by accident. It was forged in the fires of early life experience. Somewhere in your past, you learned that being good, compliant, and helpful was the safest way to exist. Perhaps you had a parent whose love was conditional, who only gave affection when you were quiet and didn't cause trouble. Perhaps you grew up in a chaotic environment where your role was to be the emotional caretaker, to manage the moods of the adults around you. You learned, on a cellular level, that your survival depended on your ability to anticipate and meet the needs of others while suppressing your own. Being bad, having a need, expressing anger, disagreeing, was associated with danger, the withdrawal of love, the eruption of anger, the threat of abandonment. So, you packed away all of those unacceptable parts of yourself and locked them in the basement of your psyche. And this brings us to the second and perhaps most powerful of Jung's concepts, the shadow. The shadow is everything we have repressed about ourselves because we believe it to be unacceptable. It is not necessarily evil. It contains our unlived life, our creativity, our assertiveness, our anger, our healthy selfishness. For the person identified with the good person persona, the shadow is filled with everything that contradicts the mask. In your shadow lives the one who can say no. In your shadow lives the one who can feel anger without shame. In your shadow lives the one who can put their own needs first without feeling guilty. In your shadow lives the one who is not afraid of another person's disapproval. You have spent a lifetime running from this shadow. You have labeled it selfish, mean, cold, difficult. You live in constant fear that if you stop giving, if you set one boundary, this monstrous shadow self will emerge and reveal you to be the bad person you've always been terrified of being. This is the core of the trap. The dynamic with a narcissistic or emotionally demanding person is not just about them. It is a dance. Their entitlement is the perfect key to unlock your fear of being selfish. Their bottomless need is the perfect magnet for your compulsion to give. They sense, on an unconscious level, that you are more afraid of your own shadow than you are of being exploited by them. They can push and push because they know you will always retreat. You will retreat from the boundary. You will retreat from the conflict. You will retreat from your own anger. You will do anything to avoid the terrible feeling of being the bad guy. And so, you abandon the field. You abandon your own inner territory, and you call it keeping the peace. But it is not peace. It is a slow, grinding surrender of the self. The pain you feel is the cry of your own shadow. It is all those repressed parts of you, rattling the door of the basement, begging for air. The anger you feel simmering beneath the surface is not a sign that you are becoming a bad person. It is righteous, healthy anger. It is the life force in you, refusing to be extinguished. It is the part of you that loves you, screaming, "Stop! Stop betraying us for the sake of a mask that is killing us." There is another layer to this, a subtle psychological mechanism that makes this pattern so difficult to break. It's the mechanism of projection. In Jungian terms, projection is when we unconsciously attribute our own unacknowledged qualities, both positive and negative, onto other people. For the person stuck in the good person role, this happens in two devastating ways. First, you project your own goodness. You have a deep capacity for empathy, integrity, and genuine care. Because this is your reality, you unconsciously assume it is everyone else's reality too. You look at another person, and you project your own good heart onto them. You believe that, deep down, they must be like you. They must be fair. They must be reasonable. They must have good intentions. This projection of goodness is why you give so many chances. It's why you accept so many excuses. When their behavior is hurtful or exploitative, your mind scrambles to find an explanation that fits your projection. They must be having a bad day. They don't really mean it. They're just wounded. You create an entire narrative to protect your projection of their goodness. Because to admit that they might simply not share your values is too terrifying. It would mean the world is not as safe as you need it to be. It would mean your kindness is not a universal language. You are not in a relationship with the actual person in front of you. You are in a relationship with your projection of who you need them to be. And you keep pouring your energy, your love, and your kindness into this projected image, hoping that if you give enough, the real person will finally transform into the illusion you've created. This is a recipe for perpetual heartbreak and exhaustion. You are trying to fill a cup that is not only empty, but has no bottom. The second, and more insidious projection, is the projection of your own shadow. Remember that basement where you've locked away your capacity for anger, for saying no, for being selfish? You are so terrified of those qualities in yourself that you become hyper-aware of them in others. But the real trap is this. You project your fear of your shadow onto the act of setting a boundary. The moment you think, "I need to tell them I can't do this," your mind doesn't just see a simple act of self-care. It projects the entire monster from your basement onto that action. The boundary becomes a cruel, selfish, aggressive act. In your mind, saying no is the same as screaming, "I hate you." Stating a need is the same as being a demanding narcissist. You are projecting the archetype of the bad person onto the simple, healthy act of protecting yourself. This is why setting a boundary feels so disproportionately terrifying. It's not about the boundary itself. It's about the meaning you have unconsciously attached to it. You believe that by setting a boundary, you are becoming your shadow. You are becoming the very thing you have spent your entire life trying not to be. And so, you retreat. You swallow the no and say yes. You apologize for having a need. You betray yourself one more time, because the guilt of self-betrayal feels more familiar, and therefore safer, than the terror of being seen as bad. The guilt is the chain that keeps you locked in the pattern. It whispers that your exhaustion is a small price to pay for remaining the good person. But it is a lie. The price is your life force. The price is yourself. So how does this cycle break? It does not break by trying to become a harder, colder person. That is just another reactive mask. It does not break by vowing to never be kind again. That is a betrayal of your true nature. The cycle breaks when you finally turn and face the parts of yourself you have been running from. The beginning of freedom is a subtle shift in perspective. It's the moment you realize, my anger is not a moral failing, it is information. It is a signal from my nervous system that a boundary has been crossed. My desire to say no is not selfish. It is the voice of my own instinct for self-preservation. My exhaustion is not a weakness. It is the honest feedback of a system that is overloaded. This is the work of shadow integration. It is not about unleashing a monster. It is about going down into the basement of your psyche, not with a sword, but with a lantern. It is about meeting these repressed parts of yourself with curiosity, not judgment. You sit with your anger and ask it, what are you trying to protect? You listen to your resentment and ask it, what unspoken need do you represent? You begin to see that these shadow parts are not enemies, they are abandoned children. They are the fierce, loyal guardians of your inner world that you disowned because you were taught they were ugly. Integration is the process of reclaiming them. It is telling your anger, I see you. You have a right to be here. Thank you for trying to protect me. It is telling your need for solitude, you are not an inconvenience, you are valid. As you do this, something remarkable begins to happen. The good person persona starts to lose its absolute power. It becomes what it was always meant to be, a choice, not a compulsion. You can choose to be kind, but now it comes from a place of genuine abundance, not from a place of fear. A boundary is no longer a declaration of war. It becomes a simple act of clarity. Think of a garden. A healthy garden has a fence. The fence is not there because it hates the wilderness outside. It is there because it loves the flowers inside. The fence protects the vulnerable things so they have a safe space to grow. Your boundaries are not an attack on others. They are an act of love and protection for your own inner world. When you first start to build these fences, expect resistance. The world is accustomed to your boundaryless fountain. When you install a tap, people who were used to drinking for free will be upset. They will call you selfish. They will say you've changed. They will accuse you of being cold. And in that moment, all your old fears will rush in. The fear of being bad will scream in your ear. This is the critical test. This is the moment where you must choose. Do you tear down the fence to soothe their discomfort and betray yourself again? Or do you stand firm, breathe through the terror, and honor the promise you made to yourself? In that moment, you must remember the projection. Their accusation that you are selfish is often a projection of their own entitlement. They are not seeing you. They are seeing the disruption of a service they took for granted. Your job is not to manage their feelings. Your job is to tend to your garden. The guilt will come. Guilt is the ghost of the old programming. It's the withdrawal symptom of the addiction to being good. When it appears, do not fight it. Acknowledge it. Say to yourself, there is the guilt. It feels uncomfortable. It feels like I've done something wrong. But I know this feeling. This is not proof of my badness. This is the sound of a chain breaking. You learn to sit with the discomfort of the guilt without letting it drive you back into self-abandonment. If this journey of understanding the persona, the shadow, and the projection of goodness names something you have felt but never been able to articulate, take a moment. Write down a single sentence for yourself, not for anyone else to see. A sentence that captures the truth you are beginning to recognize. Perhaps it is, my needs are not a crime, or my anger is a loyal friend, or simply, I am allowed to have a fence. This small act of naming is a powerful step in making the unconscious conscious. True kindness, the kind that actually changes the world, is not boundless. It is discerning. It is wise. It is rooted in a deep sense of self-worth. The person who has integrated their shadow can be far more genuinely kind than the person trapped in the good person persona. Why? Because their giving is a choice, not a transaction. The compulsive giver is always, on some level, giving in order to get something back. Approval, safety, validation, love. Their giving is tainted with the anxiety of the unspoken contract. This is why it leads to resentment. The giving comes with invisible strings attached. But the integrated person, who has faced their shadow and learned to meet their own needs, gives from a place of fullness. They can offer a cup of water because their own well is full. They are not giving away their last drop in a desperate bid for validation. Their giving is clean. It has no agenda other than the act of giving itself. They can also say no cleanly, without guilt or aggression, because their no is not a rejection of the other person. It is an affirmation of their own capacity. This is the shift from being nice to being kind. Nice is about avoiding conflict at all costs. It's about being pleasing. It's a function of the persona. Kind is about acting from a place of truth and love. And sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to say no. Sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for another person is to allow them to face the consequences of their own actions, rather than constantly rescuing them. Your journey is not about destroying your kindness. It is about rescuing it. It is about taking your beautiful, life-giving spring and finally building a well around it. It is about learning to draw water for yourself first, to ensure that you are nourished, hydrated, and whole. Only then can you truly give to others without depleting yourself. Imagine yourself holding that empty cup, the one that has been drained time and time again. For so long you have held it out to others, begging them to fill it, or you have frantically tried to pour from it, even when it was bone dry. The transformation begins when you turn the cup upright and hold it for yourself. You stop looking outside for someone to give you permission to be whole. You stop waiting for someone else to validate your needs. You turn your attention inward. You begin to pour your own awareness, your own compassion, your own acceptance into that cup. You honor your need for rest. You listen to your body. You validate your own feelings. Slowly, drop by drop, the cup begins to fill. This is not a selfish act. This is the most generous act you can perform. Because a world full of drained, resentful, self-betraying good people is not a better world. It is a world of quiet desperation, a world full of integrated, self-respecting individuals who give from a place of genuine abundance. That is a world that can heal. The fear of being bad will not vanish overnight. It is a deeply carved neural pathway. But you can stop letting it drive the car. You can put it in the passenger seat. When it screams that you are being selfish, you can turn to it and say, "I hear you. Thank you for your concern, but I am driving now." Your kindness is not a flaw. It is a superpower. But like any superpower, it requires wisdom and discipline to wield. For years, you have been leaking your power, letting it be siphoned off by those who do not value it. The time of self-betrayal is ending, not with a bang, but with a quiet, firm, and loving no. A no to the demands that drain you, a no to the guilt that chains you, and a deep, resounding yes to yourself. The final truth is this: you were never afraid of being bad. You were afraid of being powerful. You were afraid of the responsibility that comes with owning your full self, the light and the shadow. You were afraid of the disapproval you would face if you stopped playing the role assigned to you. But the cost of avoiding that disapproval has become too high. The cost is your own soul. Let your kindness become a conscious choice, not a desperate plea for love. Let it be the overflow from a cup that you and you alone have learned to keep full. My kindness no longer requires my self-betrayal.